Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parvijikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvijikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Isopanisad Ki Jai, Shri Srivasa Pandit Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So today being the appearance day of Shri Srivasa Pandit, we'll read a little bit about him from the Samadhi's book. Srivasa Pandit, the fifth member of the Panchatattva, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, lived in Navadvip before the advent of Lord Chaitanya. Srivas led his brothers Shri Ram, Shri Nidhi, and Shri Pati in their devotional lives of singing Krishna's names, worshipping the Lord, and bathing thrice daily in the Ganges. Meeting with Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, they studied Srimad Bhagavatam and prayed for an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Why did they pray? Because only an avatar of Krishna could re-establish Vaishnavism among the staunch atheists, logicians, and proud pundits harassing Nadia at that time. Malini, the wife of Srivas, was a constant friend of Shachi Devi. She served Nimai as a nurse. When Lord Vishwambara appeared, the hearts of all the devotees were filled with parental affection. Vatsalya Baba. Gaura Chandra loved Malini and Srivas as a second mother and father. Srivas Angam was located 200 yards north of Nimai's house. Srivas Pandit's palatial home had large comfortable rooms, a high protective boundary wall, and lush, densely foliated gardens and groves. Every night, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu and his dearest friends would enjoy ecstatic kirtans there and taste the mellows of Vrindavan. There, the raging Muslim Qazi broke the sacred Mridanga in his foolish attempt to stop Sri Krishna's Sankirtan movement. Henceforward, Srivasangam was known as Kol Bangadanga, the place where the Mridanga was broken. The Qazi passed an ordinance prohibiting Sankirtan. Violators would be converted to the Muslim faith and lose their property. Although most of Nadia's residents panicked over this, Srivas Pandit laughed at the fanatical law. Within Srivasangam, Lord Gauranga Sundar showed his divine form to all his eternal associates. The house of Shiva served as the headquarters of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. The daily Bhagavatam classes, nightly kirtans, and many confidential Braja pastimes of Lord Chaitanya occurred there. Srivas Pandit and Sri Advaita Acharya, the learned chiefs of the Brahmin community, dedicated all their energy to the Lord's Harinam Sankirtan movement. They surrendered their bodies, minds, homes, friends, family, and all their possessions to Lord Chaitanya's service. They knew no other gods or goddesses. Srivas Pandit maintained his family not because they were his relatives, but because they were Lord Chaitanya's loving servants. Srivas Pandit represents the marginal living entity, the Tasta Shakti, Jiva. The devotees, headed by Srivas, are described as Lord Chaitanya's smaller limbs, his face, his eyes, hands, discs, other weapons. They all took part in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. With them, Lord Chaitanya spread the Sankirtan movement. Srivas Pandit is Narada Muni, an intergalactic preacher and constant associate of the Lord. His samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. Srivas Pandit ki jai. Now, Shri Isopanisad. We are beginning the 14th verse today. Sambhutam cha vinasham cha yastad vedo bhayam saha vinashena mityum tirtva sambhutyam itamashnute. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedo bhayam saha vinashena mityum tirtva sambhutyam itamashnute. One should know perfectly the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and his transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men, and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it, and in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Purport. By its so-called advancement of knowledge, human civilization has created many material things, including spaceships and atomic energy. Yet it has failed to create a situation in which people need not die, take birth again, become old, or suffer from disease. When an intelligent man raises the question of these miseries before a so-called scientist, the scientist very cleverly replies that material science is progressing and that ultimately it will be possible to render man deathless, ageless, and diseaseless. Such answers prove the scientist's gross ignorance of material nature. In material nature, everyone is under the stringent laws of matter and must pass through 6 stages of existence: birth, growth, maintenance, production of byproducts, deterioration, and finally death. No one in contact with material nature can be beyond these 6 laws of transformation. Therefore, no one, whether demigod, man, animal, or plant, can survive forever in the material world. The duration of life varies according to species. Lord Brahma, the chief living being within this material universe, lives for millions and millions of years, while a minute germ lives for some hours only. Okay, I'm ready now. Thank you, Prabhu. But no one in the material world can survive eternally. Things are born or created under certain conditions, they stay for some time, and if they continue to live, they grow, procreate, gradually dwindle, and finally vanish. According to these laws, even the Brahmas of which there are millions in different universes, are all liable to death, either today or tomorrow. Okay, let's try this again. Say again?
Very small garden.
I understand. They're liable to death. Let's see. Therefore, the entire material universe is called Martyaloka, the place of death. We're in Text-14 of this. Anyway. Material scientists and politicians are trying to make this place deathless because they have no information of the deathless spiritual nature. This is due to their ignorance of the Vedic literature, which contains full knowledge confirmed by mature transcendental experience. Unfortunately, modern man is averse to receiving knowledge from the Vedas, Puranas, and other scriptures. From the Vishnu Purana 6761, we receive the following information. Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Chetra Gyakya Tata Para Abhidhya Karma Sanganya Tritiya Shaktir Ishite. Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, possesses different energies known as Para, superior, and Apara, inferior. The living entities belong to the superior energy. The material energy in which we are presently entangled is the inferior energy. The material creation is made possible by this energy, which covers the living entities with ignorance, avidya, and induces them to perform fruitive activities. Yet there is another part of the Lord's superior energy that is different from both this material inferior energy and the living entities. That superior energy constitutes the eternal, deathless abode of the Lord. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8:20. I'll say, you say. Parastasmato bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yaksa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu navinashyati. All the material planets, upper, lower, and intermediate, including the sun, moon, and Venus, are scattered throughout the universe. These planets exist only during the lifetime of Brahma. Some lower planets, however, are vanquished after the end of one day of Brahma and are again created during the next day of Brahma. On the upper planets, time is calculated differently. One of our years is equal to only 24 hours, or one day and night, on many of the upper planets. The 4 ages of Earth, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, last only 12,000 years according to the time scale of the upper planets. Such a length of time multiplied by 1,000 constitutes one day of Brahma, and one night of Brahma is the same. Such days and nights accumulate into months and years, and Brahma lives for 100 such years. At the end of Brahma's life, the complete universal manifestation is vanquished. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this is again the speaker of the Isopanisad is calling forth this word sambhuta, and we hear a lot of sambhuta in this Isopanisad, and this indicates the personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. And here it says, sambhutim cha vinasham cha, the temporary. So vinasham refers to that which will be destroyed, the temporary material manifestation, including all the demigods, men, animals, and so forth. So one has to know both of these. We don't neglect the material world because we understand that it's part of Krishna's energy. And we're in the material world, so we need to know how it works and how we can use the elements of this material world, which consists of Krishna's energy, so that we can finally escape this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. When one thoroughly knows these, as Vigyan of these things, the personality of Godhead and his material energy, then one can surpass death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it, and enjoy eternal life of bliss and knowledge in Goloka Vrindavan. That's what this verse is all about. So now Prabhupada talks about the illusory material civilization. so-called advancement of knowledge, human civilizations created many material things, including spaceships and atomic energy. So this endeavor to adjust the material energy for our happiness and prosperity, this is all part of Maya's grand illusion. There's really no possibility of doing that. And when one forgets Krishna and tries to be the master and enjoyer and controller of this material world, one becomes entrapped in her complexities and suffers old age, disease, and death, and rebirth repeatedly. As Prabhupada points out, I've heard him several times on lectures, with all of this accumulation of knowledge and material complexities, they forget the basic point that one has to die, and that lesson 1 in the Bhagavad Gita, one will take birth again and suffer old age and disease. And this is really the problems, and they can't do anything about them. They've neglected those. So the whole thing is a big mistake. This whole material civilization, and as we can see now, one little pathogen, and they're helpless. This is part of the disease, disease in old age. So their answers, whenever an intelligent raise the question of the miseries, they cleverly reply the material science is progressing, ultimately we'll be able to solve them, but that's probably disproves their utter ignorance. So then he talks about these 6 changes, and this is true of every organism: birth, growth, maintenance, production of byproducts, deterioration, and death. And these are absent from the soul, as we learn in the Jayate Miyate Vakadarshan verse, text 20 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. The duration of life is very long for Brahma, very short for human beings and animals, insects. But it doesn't make any difference. Whether Brahma may live 311 trillion plus years, an ant may live for a day, but it's all this churning. It's all this Bhava Sagar, the ocean of change and under the grip of time. And so no one is really making any progress. It's simply getting entangled, as explained in the 15th chapter, verse 1 and 2. The upside-down banyan tree, you go from one branch to another, you think you're making progress, but you just different varieties of the same prison house, different rooms. So what Srila Prabhupada is given, what the whole Parampara gives, and the Vedas, is actual knowledge that can help us to solve life's real problems. That's what's being given here. Material scientists are trying to make this place deathless because they have no information of the deathless spiritual nature, but it's clearly impossible. It's born out of ignorance. Then Prabhupada quotes this verse from Vishnu Purana, which is also quoted by Lord Chaitanya in his teachings to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I believe. Yeah, it's chapter 6, Madhya Lila. Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta. So Vishnu's energy is transcendental. And there's another transcendental energy, is internal energy, including the spiritual world, Radharani, all of that, Lakshmis. That's certainly para. And Chaitagya, the living entity who knows the individual body, he's also para. And then there's this third energy, avidya karma sanyaya, the illusory energy which engages us in fruitive activities. These are the basic divisions, the internal, marginal, and external. So we have to know that because that's part of our sambandha gyan, who we are, what this world is, what the relationship, who is God, and how we can reawaken our relationship with Krishna. Okay, so we belong to that spiritual energy, but because we're marginal, we have a tendency to be absorbed, to get absorbed in the material energy and forget Krishna. Superior energy is the spiritual world, and Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavad Gita verse, Padastasmatu bhava onyo. Anya means another. There's another nature beside the material nature, besides the vyakta and the avyakta. Which is transcendental even to the comings and goings and the manifestation and unmanifestation of the material world. There's a whole other invisible realm, which is the spiritual world. That's Sanatanam. It's not coming and going and changing. When one goes there, is never, or that world is never destroyed. When this world is destroyed, that's they say it is. And Prabhupada explains that verse. They're all vanquished, even up to Brahma Loka. Then he talks about the difference in time. The sense of time is different on different planets and different bodies, different organisms. And that's as far as we read. So this Isopanisad is very concise, but each verse is giving us essential instruction. One has to know not just sambhutam. What is sambhutam? We learn this is the absolute truth. Prabhupada makes it very clear, first in the word-by-word meaning. Sometimes it's really important to read those. Sambhutam indicates the eternal personality of Godhead, along with His transcendental name, form, pastime, qualities, and paraphernalia, the variegatedness of His abode, etc. So, because of its absolute nature, everything directly related to Krishna is equivalent to Krishna, and we should be curious about it. Krishna means not only just Krishna himself, but his abode, his entourage, his paraphernalia, everything related to him directly. Now, you can say this material world is also related to Krishna, but it's not related directly. It's binna prakriti rashtada, that is separated from him. So while we can train our mind to understand this is the energy of Krishna and has to remember him through this energy, it's not the same as remembering the spiritual world, as remember this energy. We tend to get absorbed in it and forget Krishna because he's not directly here. That's true. Any questions or comments? I should go on. I can go on. Let's finish the purport. Those living beings who reside on higher planets like the sun and the moon, as well as those on Martyaloka, this earth planet, the earth world of death, and also those who live on lower planets, all are merged into the waters of devastation during the night of Brahma. During this time, no living beings or species remain manifest, although spiritually they continue to exist. This unmanifest stage is called avyakta. Avyakta basically means invisible. Again, when the entire, or unmanifest, if you look up manifest, you see that one of the meanings is visible. Again, when the entire universe is vanquished at the end of Brahma's lifetime, there is another avyakta state. So at the end of his lifetime, then everything merges into Mahavishnu, including Brahma. But beyond these two unmanifested states is another unmanifested state. He's referring to the Gita verse. And that's the spiritual atmosphere or nature. There are a great number of spiritual planets in this atmosphere, and these planets exist eternally, even when all the planets within this material universe are vanquished at the end of Brahma's life. There are many material universes, each under the jurisdiction of a Brahma, and this cosmic manifestation within the jurisdiction of the various Brahmas is but a display of 1/4 of the energy of the Lord, Ekapad Vibhuti. This is the inferior energy. Beyond the jurisdiction of Brahma is the spiritual nature, which is called Tripad Vibhuti, 3/4 of the Lord's energy. This is the superior energy, or Para Prakriti. The predominating supreme person residing within the spiritual nature is Lord Sri Krishna. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.22, he can be approached only by unalloyed devotional service and not by the processes of jnana, philosophy, yoga, mysticism, or karma, fruit of work. The karmis, or fruit of workers, can elevate themselves to the Svargaloka planets, which include the sun and the moon. Jnanis and yogis can attain still higher planets, such as Mahaloka, Tapoloka, and Brahmaloka. And when they become still more qualified through devotional service, they can enter into the spiritual nature, either the illuminating cosmic atmosphere of the spiritual sky, Brahman, or the Vaikuntha planets, according to their qualification. It is certain, however, that no one can enter into the spiritual Vaikuntha planets without being trained in devotional service. On the material planets, everyone from Brahma down to the ant is trying to lord it over material nature, and this is the material disease. As long as this material disease continues, the living entity has to undergo the process of bodily change. Whether he takes the form of a man, demigod, or animal, he ultimately has to endure an unmanifested condition during the two devastations, the devastation during the night of Brahma and the devastation at the end of Brahma's life. If we want to put an end to this process of repeated birth and death, as well as the concomitant factors of old age and disease, We must try to enter the spiritual planets where we can live eternally in the association of Lord Krishna or his plenary expansions, his Narayan forms. Lord Krishna or his plenary expansions dominate every one of these innumerable planets, a fact confirmed in the Shruti mantras, Eko Vashi Sarvaga Krishna Idya, Eko Pisan Bahotayo Vabhati. This is from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. No one can dominate Krishna. It is the conditioned soul who tries to dominate material nature and is instead subjected to the laws of material nature and the sufferings of repeated birth and death. The Lord comes here to reestablish the principles of religion, and the basic principle is the development of an attitude of surrender to Him. This is the Lord's last instruction in the Bhagavad Gita, 1866. Also you say, Sarva dharmam parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo. Then what's the next? Mokshiyasyami mashitaha. Mokshiyasyami mashitaha. Say it. Thank you. Give up all other processes and just surrender unto me. I will deliver you from all your sinful actions. Do not fear. Unfortunately, foolish men have misinterpreted this prime teaching and misled the masses of people in diverse ways. People have been urged to open hospitals, but not to educate themselves to enter into the spiritual kingdom by devotional service. They have been taught to take interest only in temporary relief work, which can never bring real happiness to the living entity. They start varieties of public and semi-governmental institutions to tackle the devastating power of nature, but they don't know how to pacify insurmountable nature. Many men are advertised as great scholars of the Bhagavad Gita, but they overlook the Gita's message by which material nature can be pacified. Powerful nature can be pacified only by the awakening of God consciousness, as clearly pointed out in the Bhagavad Gita 7.14. I'll say, you say. Daivesha gunamayi, mama maya durattaya, mamevaye papadyante, maya me tang tadantite. Let me read the translation. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. In this mantra of the Sri Isopanisad, the Sri Isopanisad teaches that one must perfectly know both Sambhuti, the personality of Godhead, and Vinasha, the temporary material manifestation, side by side. There's another mantra saying the same thing. By knowing the material manifestation alone, one cannot be saved. For in the course of nature, there is devastation at every moment. Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti yamaliyam. Which means day after day, so many human beings are dying and being dragged off to the abode of Yamaraj. Nor can one be saved from these devastations by opening hospitals. One can be saved only by complete knowledge of the eternal life of bliss and awareness. The whole Vedic scheme is meant to educate men in this art of attaining eternal life. People are often misguided by temporary attractive things based on sense gratification. But service rendered to the sense objects is both misleading and degrading. We must therefore save ourselves and our fellow man in the right way. There is no question of liking or disliking the truth. It is there. If we want to be saved from repeated birth and death, we must take to the devotional service of the Lord. There can be no compromise, for this is a matter of necessity. So it brings to mind these three important verses by Lord Rishabhdev, where he says, Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yanindriya pritaya apanoti nasadhamanne yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asade. Those who are simply concerned with sense gratification perform all kinds of sinful activities and are certainly foolish. They're mad. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma. He said, Rishabhdev says, not a good idea. Nasadhamanne yata atmanoyam. Because the soul will certainly get another body, physical body, material body, by such activity, which will produce suffering. Nasadama yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeya. Kleshada means giving misery. So what's the solution? So Rishabhdev says, Parabhavastavada bodha jato yavana jigyasata atma tattva. As long as one does not inquire into the absolute truth, the truth of the self, one will remain in ignorance, and that ignorance will ensure his defeat. Parabhava means defeat. Birth and death, old age and disease are a form of defeat for the soul. And everyone is being defeated in that way, no matter how successful they imagine themselves to be in the material energy. Parabhavastavan abodha jato yavan jigyasata tattva. So in that situation, yavat kriyas, one will definitely perform fruitive activity, kriyas. Yavat kriyas tavadidam manovai karmatmakam. And when you perform those fruitive activities, you create a situation in the mind called the karmatmaka. That is your meditation. You're in the modes of nature. So karmatmaka, and by that karmatmaka mind, sharira bandha, you stay bound up to a physical body. So that's the analysis. And then the last verse of the 3, evam mana karma vasham payunte avidyyapanubadiyamane, that in that situation of a karmatmaka mind is produced of ignorance, evam mana karma vasham, you're forced to perform this fruitive activity because you have to act, and if you're not acting for Krishna, you're going to be acting for Maya. Karma vasham payunte avidyatmani, and the soul is in deep ignorance. So in that situation, what's the result? He says that the only verdict is Priti nayavan mai vasudeve namuchate dehi yogena tavat. As long as one does not develop love for me, says Rishabhdev, who is none other than Vasudeva. Priti nayavan mai vasudeve namuchate dehi yogena tavat. One will not be able to get free of bondage to a physical body. So there's no liberation without mukti. No mukti without bhakti. No liberation without devotional service. So Prabhupada understood the urgency of this. Anyone who really understands it, living it, realizing it, he understands the urgency for people in general of this knowledge, because we act on the basis of knowledge. So this Isopanisad was actually written in India. It was serialized in his Back to God. He never finished it there. He came to America. He got through, I think, 11 verses. And the next time we have a nice chance, this most famous, one of the most famous of these verses, Hiranmayena Patrena, where the devotee is praying that the Lord will remove his glaring effulgence to Brahman so he can see his beautiful face. That's why it's the Isha Upanishad. Upanishads often emphasize the impersonal or Brahman aspect, but not the Isha Upanishad, and certainly not the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. So you will find plenty of Krishna Bhakti in these Upanishads. Okay. Any other points on this? Let's see, what do we... Okay, go ahead, bro. Should work.
So, I was listening to one devotee. This is in relation to, you mentioned training. Somewhere you mentioned training the mind, but I was listening to one devotee, and it was Dravida Dasa, and he was making the point that it's easy to get into the routine of devotional service, but he said a lot of the times he sees that devotees aren't putting their heart into it. It's like, like, what is it, niyamagraha?
Yes.
So maybe you could just comment on, and he was saying that it's almost like devotees are like saving their heart for something else. But I mean, he doesn't know what it...
Who is mentioning?
Dravida Dasa. Saying, they're saving it for something else, but really they should be giving it to Krishna. That's what Krishna wants.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just comment on the idea of, because it takes like training of the mind, of the consciousness to like focus and all that. So maybe you could just comment on something.
Well, he's absolutely correct. This is one of the ways in which Maya's influence continues, even though it can go year after year this way. And as you say, you're in devotional service, but you're holding back there's a the heart. The consciousness is a complex thing. There's a whole kinds of levels that we don't even access. People have traumas that they went through that they're trying to overcome, and that are blocking their full surrender to Krishna, or their focus. So much of the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find 25 verses there about how it's so important to fix your mind on me, without deviation, and that's basic yogic principle. And the simple act that we perform every day, anyone, serious devotee, initiated devotee, chanting 16 rounds, that's our basic form of meditation. But it all depends on how present you're there, how present your mind is, how much you focus on the sound. And we sometimes forget that. And we can go years chanting our rounds, but not really hearing that much, certainly not being completely absorbed. And it's that focus on Krishna. It's just like you come, before the deity. It's a big holiday. They're specially dressed. Anyone has any devotional sentiment, will appreciate and look at the deity and say, "Oh, how beautiful they look today." It's drawing your eye. You're drawing your consciousness. So the idea is that the temples are very important because they're able to help your remembrance of the form of Krishna even in a conditioned state. But the main practice we have for the age is this chanting of the holy name, and that can happen anywhere, anytime. Anybody can do that. You don't need a temple. But if we don't take advantage of that chanting of the holy name, both in japa and in kirtan, and I think one of the things that for a long time I've realized is that the movement was so successful at the beginning because there was such a predominance of chanting. There wasn't all these other things going on. And you often had more devotees, and I know it's in many of the centers, and whether it was more or fewer, the program was basically going out, and spending hours chanting and coming back and doing other things. And that, I think, was a key element of energizing the devotees to do things like go and start temples and finally do book distribution. It's the engine of the whole thing, and somehow we've gotten away from that, and I think that's a danger, because my experience has been that the kirtan helps the japa and the japa helps the kirtan. Your experience of both is nourished by the other one as well as the actual thing. So I think that's what he's talking about, is that when you're kind of floating along and you're not really advancing, you're just sort of floating, the tendency is to kind of go through the motions. And that's dangerous. Niyamagraha is very dangerous, because one of the things it does is it makes you more likely to perform offenses. That in itself is an offense, because you're talking basically about inattention. Attention, when you think about it and you ratchet it up to the highest, this is meditation, this is samadhi, when your attention is completely absorbed. But you can easily be inattentive, which we know is an offense. And that inattention, that offensiveness, means you're not getting as much benefit from the holy name. There's still a benefit, but it's not giving you that deeper and deeper experience of Krishna's presence, and especially awakening your bhakti for Krishna. So it's what he's talking about there, as you mentioned, is the niyamagraha phenomenon of which it says right there in the lecture of instruction can destroy your bhakti. And because the thing is, one offense leads to another. If you're not attentive in your rounds, you're not really getting a taste, then you'll be less tolerant of eventual things that happen in your experience. You can lash out. You can become disinterested. You can be cut corners. Come late. This is one of the things that a symptom of niyamagraha. And one thing leads to another, and before you know it, you got other things to do besides bhakti. So it's a big topic, but I think it's a phenomenon that we all have to be vigilant against, because this is how the science as it is becomes lost. It's It's right there in the Gita. Even Bhakti is coming down. You have a certain number of acharyas. They can move thousands or millions even, and things are going on. But when the acharya leaves, if the mantle isn't taken up, if the spirit isn't passed down, or we neglect it, and then things can degrade. And that's what happens. So it's a very good point. How to avoid that? Preaching and example. Those are the two things. Okay, it's 8:30. Thank you for your attendance. I hope we had a big crowd on the internet. I know you're out there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.